everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Alchemy Podcast today. I'm really excited for our guest today, Brock Painter. Welcome to the show, bro.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So, Brock, I was driving down here and I was thinking about you. And one thing that I really admire about you is a couple of things. One, you are like committed to personal growth, physical health, mental health, and wellness. And you're always like in a good mood when I see you. You've got like this bright energy. You've got like the $1 million smile, right? Every time I see you, you light up. You're like, what's up, man? How's it going? Right? You can feel kind of this natural, optimistic, confident, and the word I would use, I think I'd use joyful energy. It's just, you just radiate that, you know, and I was on your podcast a couple months ago and I remember feeling exactly the same way on your show. So I'm curious, like that, you know, optimistic, happy, energized essence that you bring, is that kind of just always naturally who you've been? Or is that something that was learned?
I think a bit of both. Part of it is my personality. It's from a young age, I've always had an excitement for life and wanting to just be a part of everything. And then as I've gotten older, you know, hardship does come, obviously, and there's good days, there's bad days, and you start to learn how to ride the wave. But one thing that I've realized is just the beauty and the contrast and being able to show up the way that I want to instead of the way that I feel like I have to. And not coming from a place of fear in that, right? Like, yeah. Oh, I'm having a bad day, so bad day means that I can bring that energy to Doug.
Sure.
And because that's not fair to you, and that's not fair to my wife, my kids, the people in my program, none of the above, right? And so, you know, it becomes a choice and who I want to be and how I want to present myself, and that becomes a big part of it, and that's something I train.
Right. So I know you've got your company NeuroMastery, right? Tell us more about that, because you hear sometimes like these coaching programs like NeuroMastery, like what does that even mean? Like talk to us a little bit about like what that actually means to you, and kind of maybe basically share us some simple tips on the front end of like, how do we actually prime our state? Because I'm a big believer, you know, alchemy sales coaching, I talk a lot about, hey, your state of being is going to be the most influential dictator on your performance, right? And so it seems, as I've done a lot of the biohacking stuff, that like NeuroMastery is kind of a similar thing. So what inspired you to start their NeuroMastery group? And I'm also curious on the other end is like, what was the defining moment when you realized you're like, oh, I'm geeking out on this stuff. I love this stuff. Like, how did that all unfold for you?
Yeah, I love that you distinguish those two moments, because they're two totally different moments. Because a lot of it came from my own personal experience. It all began back when I was in high school. Junior year of football, I had about 10 plus concussions.
10 concussions in 1 year?
No, so it was over the span of about 5 years.
Okay.
I got 4 in a row in the span of a month when I was 14. My mom told me if I got another one, then she was going to take me out of football.
Yeah.
And so me being the smart kid that I was, said, well, then I'm not telling you anything.
Yeah.
And I went 5 years, continued to play, and then it started to act up on me where I was getting bloody noses, I was passing out, and I had a lot of issues. And went to the doctors, they did an MRI, the whole deal, and they said, Brock, you know, you can't play football anymore.
So I've never had a concussion, right? So what is it like? What does a concussion feel like? What happens? What's the experience when you're concussed?
It's a weird experience. It depends on what level of concussion. So like if you pass out, you forget a lot of it, and then you wake up and your body is just vibrating. And it's like, woo, woo. And then you come to and you don't really know where you're at or what's going on, and you just have all these people around you, and you're like, what is happening? And then your head just hurts.
Yeah, just confused.
Yeah, and then there's ones where, you know, like there was one time I hit this kid in football. I got up, ran off the field, and like I don't really remember a whole lot of this, but I was standing there dizzy, and my coach got in my face, yelled. I couldn't hear a thing he said, and to this day I still don't really know.
Yeah.
He wasn't stoked. But yeah, so it's kind of a weird experience. You just seem clueless. You can't.
Scary? Are you like scared because you're like, I'm not sure what's going on? Or is you're just kind of lost in the sauce?
You're lost in the sauce, and it can get scary if you overthink it. For me, it kind of came out as anger. Like I remember seeing my mom on the field one time when I came to, and I was like, Mom, get the freak off the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was an interesting moment. But yeah, so all that added up, and then my senior year, I couldn't play football, and I went through the whole doctor system. They gave me medication and said, hey, Brock, this is going to solve all your problems. And, you know, I realized really quickly that it was a Band-Aid, and so I took it upon myself that I was going to regrow my brain, and I was going to figure this thing out one way or the other. But also at that same time, I have an obsessive personality, and so football was everything to me. It was my friends. I woke up, I caught 100 passes, worked out, went to school, worked out again, came home, and that was my day. So that was gone. And so a lot of mental health, right? I started to get anxious. I started to feel depressed. I felt lonely and didn't know what to do.
Was it an identity crisis?
Yeah, a lot of it.
Yeah, right. When you're so locked into like, this is who I am, I'm an athlete, and then you get that rug pull, right? It can be really disorienting.
Yeah, exactly. And so I had to figure a lot of that out in that moment. And as I went down that journey, it seemed like as I got older, a lot of people would come to me and ask questions about mental health, and they brought their anxiety and depression and things like that as I got older. And that seemed to be a common thread. But me being stubborn, I did 3 years of finance in college.
Where'd you go to school?
Utah State.
Utah State.
Yeah. And then one day my wife sat me down and she said, Brock, like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be in finance. You're supposed to work with people. And so then I switched degrees, went and got my degree in psychology.
Well, I want to stop right because that's actually, I think that's a really big deal, right? So hold on. I really want to slow down here because I really believe that like some of the most pivotal moments in our life it's usually comes as like a very gentle nudge, like kind of like a subtleness from God or the universe, right? So at this point, how long have you been married?
It was new. It was like 3 months, maybe.
Yeah, and how did you meet? Remind me how you met your wife. Because remember you told me at Flow House one time.
I DM'd her.
Yeah, you DM'd her, right? Slid into the DMs, right? You go on this date, right? You guys connect. So when your wife comes to you and is like, hey, you're not supposed to be doing this, was that like a total surprise to you, or did you feel the truth in it?
Oh, I felt the truth. There was a lot of force in me doing finance. Like I was trying to force myself into the mold that I thought life needed to be.
Yeah, and so I really want to break that down because I think there's so much power in this, and that I think a lot of people are doing what they think they're supposed to be doing rather than actually following their true calling. Right? I'm supposed to go to school. I'm supposed to go get 4 degrees. I'm supposed to do finance, right? For me, it was I'm supposed to be a stockbroker because my dad was a stockbroker, right? And you have your wife, only 3 months married, so it's still pretty early in the relationship, that is like, hey, I don't think you're supposed to be doing this. And it sounds like when she told you that activated something within you.
Yeah. Well, it just gave me a realization that, you know, I love people. I love being around them. I love being able to work with them. And honestly, I love serving. I don't, like, you know how there's just certain things in your life where you don't have to expend a whole lot of energy, even though you could do a ton of work, but it doesn't take a lot from you.
Yeah, it's just the flow state.
Yeah, exactly. And I always found myself there. And I think my wife was wise enough to notice it. And I wasn't. I was a little bit stubborn there. I just did it.
Yeah. And so she's like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. So was that a scary point for you to kind of walk away from finance, or was it energizing?
Yeah. I mean, all the above. It was energizing. It was scary. It was unknown, but there was a lot of pivotal things happening at that point. So like I had done summer sales. I was knocking doors, selling pest control during that time, right? As I was going through school, I would, knock during the summer to give me the 8 months off. And I was just doing that interchangeably and trying out a whole bunch of things. And, at that same time, I was sitting in a summer sales meeting, and these guys, they were sitting there telling me, hey, Brock, you need to start recruiting. You need to build a team. And I was at that point, I'd sold for 5 years. And they were like, Brock, they offered me a pretty cool deal. They said, look, we're going to give you an office and we're actually going to send you a team. And so they were going to give me commissions. They were going to give me guys. They were going to have me run everything. And it was basically like this silver platter full of money saying, Brock, here you go. And it was hard to walk away from. But I just knew, I was like, if I'm going to recruit people to this, and if this is what I'm going to dedicate my life to, I go, why not do something I actually is meaningful to me? Yeah. And so I was kind of complaining to my wife about that. And that's where she's like, I don't know why you're trying to fit this mold.
Yeah. I really want to slow down here because I think this is really, really powerful, because as a coach, I coach people in door to door all the time. People are like, I'm trying to get out of the industry. I want to leave. And I always say the similar response. It's like, when it's your time to go, you'll know, right? People who try and force their way out usually get in trouble. And then I made a mistake and they end up coming back. But it's like this knowingness. So can you describe what that knowingness feels like? Like, how do you differentiate between like, this is my path, this is the knowingness, this is the direction I need to go, versus like, oh, I want to get out of here, this is what I want, versus there's like the knowingness. It's basically ego versus intuition, right? Like, how do you differentiate between ego and intuition for yourself?
The way I've kind of differentiated, and this is hindsight, right? Yeah. Hindsight's always 20/20, but it's fear versus faith. Because I always ask myself, or I've been asked the question, what are the similarities between fear and faith? And I was like, I don't know. And they said, the person says to me, and they go, they're both made up. Neither one is more real than the other. And I was like, okay. And then they go, what are the differences? And they said, fear is chaos. Faith at least has a plan. And where that knowingness comes from is when you feel chaos and you don't necessarily have any sure footing and you feel like you're having to force yourself into this mold and you're trying to do what you need, shoulds and have tos. Like if those are the words running in your head, you're probably on a path that is leading you towards something you don't want to do. And so when I was running that program inside of my system, it wasn't helping me. And it was just leading me into fitting this mold that I didn't like. And that's where the anxiety, depression, all those things start to come up. It was telling me like, hey, Brock, I don't like this character you're trying to play in this game. Whereas when it comes to faith, it's faith at least has a plan. And so I may not know exactly what's coming. I didn't have confidence in myself that I could even do it because confidence is comfortable. What required of me in that moment was courage, and courage is uncomfortable. Courage caused a lot to come up with me, insecurities, anxiety, everything, but I had a plan to help move me forward. So when I put myself in those situations where I did need to take risk, or I was vulnerable, or I did need to trust the plan more than I trusted myself, it seemed a whole lot easier and a lot more clear because there was that part of me that said, you know, what if I could be that person? What if this is actually a reality that I could live?
Yeah, and I love that. And what I'm picking up on, it's like when you're in those, is this, you know, a decision based out of fear or faith, it seems like fear is almost like tense and tight, and it's like worst case scenario and almost making a decision out of panic, versus faith. It just feels, just the energy behind it just feels a little bit more calm, right? There might be a really high levels of uncertainty still, but it feels kind of more calm and centered and intuitive. And I think, you know, when we make decisions in life, right, too often than not, we make decisions out of fear, right? And that usually gets us in trouble. And so when you're kind of stuck in between two decisions, I always like to say, tune into the energy, right? Do you feel tense and tight and overwhelmed and panicked and fear-based, or is it calm, confident, clear, and relaxed? And it seems like when your wife came to you and is like, hey, you're not supposed to be doing this, sure, there was really high levels of uncertainty, but it probably will release the tension of the direction you're going in your life, it seems like.
Yeah, it opened up another path that just said to me like, oh, maybe I don't have to be this person. Maybe this is possible. What if me? You know, I still think that to this day, if I'm preparing for a race or if I'm trying to grow myself and there's something scary on the other side, I just think, you know, like, what if it could be me on the other side? And if that, you know, gives me chills just thinking about it. Like, what if I could be that guy I always wanted to, rather than thinking I have to fit this mold? And I think, like, when I started NeuroMastery, the way this was all created is I thought, what is the coolest possible life that I could live? And I lived out of want and abundance and not scarcity and fear, not thinking what I should, have to, or need to, or what's been done in the industry. It was more along the lines of, like, what's the absolute best life that I could give to myself and my family? And then that's what I started to build.
Yeah. So it seems like you're very intentional. Like, what do I want to create? What do I want to build? I remember when I launched Alchemy, one of the first questions I asked myself wasn't, you know, what's the coolest business I could start, or how much money can I make? The question I asked is, what lifestyle do I want to live?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where do I want to be? Where do I want to spend my time? Who do I want to hang out with? What do I want to do in my free time? And then I built my business around that question, you know? And so you asking a very similar question, you know, launches into NeuroMastery. So, okay, so now we're like, all right, we're going to launch this thing. What were the next steps for you?
Yeah, now this part was the hard part.
Yeah.
So I put an Instagram story on and I said, hey, I'll build some workout programs, and if you'd like some mindset training along the way, I can do that. And I had 2 people respond. I was like, oh yeah, we're going, right? And I went and sold them, and I got them on the program, and then I just started grinding.
What was the initial program offer?
It was mostly workout programs, nutrition plans, and then I was doing once a week mindset training.
Yeah.
But it wasn't any, like, the mindset side I was very leery of. I was like, okay.
It's a new thing for you.
I never loved the name coach. To this day, I don't really feel like I'm a coach. Coaching is a part of the program, but I'm not a coach. It's more of a program. It's more of a movement. But when I first started, that's what it was. As I was just kind of putting it out there. I did a beta group. I had over time, I had about 5 people for 2 years. And I was just growing the business. And I was basically, I told my wife, I go, we got a year to make this work. We did summer sales last year. We got about a year of funds, and we got a year to make this happen. Otherwise, we're going to be in
the doors.
Yeah, in a hard place. That's where it all started. And it was just slowly but surely, but it was really hard. There was a lot of tension on my wife. There's a lot of tension on myself and a lot of desperation. But there was clarity in the decision. There was still that faith, but it wasn't necessarily comfortable. This part was hard. And there was a lot of building myself into the person who I knew I needed to be to build this business.
Yeah, I want to touch on that too, because I talk to I work with a lot of guys, and there's always like this vision of like, I'm going to leave and go start my own thing and be an entrepreneur. And what a lot of people don't realize, and I went through this too, just like you did, like being a first-time entrepreneur is so hard. And there are things you can't possibly predict, and you're dealing with new problems and new emotions, like a new fear, a new uncertainty. And so walk us through what some, you said it was really hard. Like what were some of the biggest trials of being a first-time entrepreneur?
People suffering in your name. That was probably one of the hardest ones. Well, I'm out there pursuing my dreams, and obviously I understand the vision. I understand what I'm doing, and I'm so excited about it. So the struggle doesn't feel as hard for me. But to come home and see your wife and having the card decline, or, seeing your kid sleep in a closet, or watching your partner not be able to feed his family for a little bit, and just watching all of that unfold, and these people who believe in you struggle in your name. You've built this vision and they believe in you, they're trusting in you, and not being able to fully fulfill that was really hard.
Yeah, not delivering on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what was your breakthrough moment?
My breakthrough moment came over time, and honestly, I still feel like I'm writing that story. But so in one of those moments of desperation, I grew up with 4 older brothers, and my mentality was always just to keep up, to do what they were doing, to follow a path, right? That's a lot of the reason I got concussions. My brother hit hard in football. I was going to hit hard in football, and I wasn't going to slow down enough to learn actually how to tackle. I'm just going to fling my body and hope something happens. And that followed me into my business. So what I did is I started reaching out to these coaches. Hey, give me the answer. Tell me the one thing that's going to change my business, right? I get on a call with a prominent coach here in Utah, and he basically says, Brock, he asked me about 3 questions, took the rest of the 15-minute call to tell me, Brock, you need to quit. Come back when you've done something meaningful. And
wait, so tell me more about that. Like what was the intention of the call?
I just wanted help. So I was like, hey, come look at my Instagram page.
Yeah.
Come look at our message. Like, just tell me something that's going to make a difference and change my business, right?
And
like
he's
I
squashing your dreams.
Yeah. And then he just basically says, Brock, come back, like quit. And then that was fine. Because to me, I can take that. I've been told basically every name in the book, and I went to him for his advice and he gave it to me. So that's fine. Right. But a week later, he wrote an entire blog about our call saying there's all these fake A gurus out there that are the middle of the road pest control salesmen telling people that they can make them lose weight when they still are 45 pounds overweight, with a wife telling them, why are you a part of a program that doesn't work? And that one hit. All the self-doubt, like, I'm not enough. Why can't I ever figure this out? Why am I not enough? Like, why not me again? Because I never felt like I was all that good at anything I did. And it was always a really hard thing for me that I couldn't figure out how I could be the person I wanted to and where the difference was. And I had all these people counting on me and I couldn't deliver, and just started getting really hard on myself. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to take the little bit of advice that he did give, and I'm going to go do something meaningful. And so I called my wife and I said, hey, hon, she's 7 months pregnant at this point. And I said, hey, hon, I'm going to sign up for a 100-mile race. And she said, I believe in you. Go ahead and do it. So we had maybe $500 in our bank account at that time, and I spent $400 of it on a race to go and do this 100-miler. I had 3 months to prepare. The furthest I had ran is like 48 miles through the Grand Canyon, but that was almost a year before, so it was like very new. I wasn't trained for it, and I said, if I got to go do something meaningful, I'm going to go do it now. I'm tired of playing small. And, that was a moment where I really had to build a lot of confidence and capability quickly.
I mean, that's burning the ships, right? You have $500 left. You kind of got called out by this coach. You're now feeling desire. I've got to go and make something big for you. And it's like, you kind of back yourself into a corner and you got to force yourself out. Right. And I love those situations, as uncomfortable as it is. And it's usually in those moments where we break through. So what was the prep like for a 100-mile race?
Yeah, so that part was brutal. I part of that process was like when I first started, I brought a lot of old habits with me and identities, and I was like, okay, I'm doing more than everybody else. Like I've always been pretty fit, but I wasn't necessarily doing anything spectacular. I was just going to the gym, training every day, and thought that was something special. But I brought a lot of that with me, like, oh, I'm doing more than everybody else. But to do a 100-mile race, like you can't just be doing a little bit better. Like you literally have to go to depths of yourself you didn't know existed. You have to shift the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so for the first 3 weeks, I tried doing it that way, like 35, 40-mile weeks, thinking I was growing, and that wasn't working. And then I said, okay, I got to burn the ships again. So I did 400-mile weeks in a row. So I averaged 17 miles a day, and I decided I'm going to do whatever it takes. And if this is what it takes to get me there, that's what I'm going to do. And so I ran the 400-mile weeks in a row, and then I did some peak weeks. I ran a 50-miler by myself, and then it was race time, right?
Did you ever have any self-doubt that you weren't going to be able to do this?
Oh, 100%.
That's not quitting?
Oh, 100%.
So talk us through those moments, right? Because I think everyone in their journey of their growth and development, the self-doubt always creeps back in, right? That voice in your head, you're not good enough, right? Like you're saying, you're not going to make it. You haven't done anything meaningful. This isn't going to work, right? When that voice shows up, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, so that's evolved over time too. At first, I listened. And I said, yeah, you're right. I'm probably not that guy. I guess that's just not me. But as I got more familiar with that voice, running is one of the best ways to do that. Like if you really want to hear that voice speak to you, go run a long ways, because you can always take another step and your mind will quit much before your body ever does. And so as I started that training, when that voice came up, a lot of what it was saying is, what's the point? Why do you need to go run 100 miles? Nobody's even watching you. You have 1,000 followers on Instagram. You really think this is going to make an impact to anybody? You really think anyone cares what you're doing right now, Brock? And one of the thoughts that I often say to myself is, I don't negotiate with terrorists. Like if that thought does not have my best interest, then you do not belong as a part of me. And it's fine. I'll listen to you and hear you out. Like I'm not suppressing, because I'm not afraid of the voice anymore. I've gotten so familiar and so comfortable, and I understand that it's just trying to protect me. It doesn't have a bad intention, but it just may not be in my best interest. And as I've learned to listen to that, that's how I speak to it. Is like, hey, I don't negotiate with terrorists. I'm not going to negotiate with you right now. I have a goal, and if you're not going to help me get there, then you don't belong here right now. I'm sorry.
Wow. So I'm sure that as you're on a 100-mile race, you probably have to have that conversation quite a few times.
Yeah.
It's not just like a one and done thing.
Yeah.
And one thing I've learned, there's a really deep Buddhist quote, and I'm curious if this opens up anything for you. But there's a really deep Buddhist quote that says, an ignored guest quickly leaves. And what that means is, right, I mean, for the analogy, let's say there's like a big party this weekend, 4th of July party, you and your wife are all excited, Gatsby party, you got your tuxedos and your gowns, and so you guys show up to this big party. And if you guys were to show up to this party and nobody even acknowledged you, no one looked you in the eye, no one listened to you, how long would you stay there? Yeah, you're going to bounce, right? Same thing is true with our thoughts, right? We have this terrorist voice, you call it, right? This terrorist voice. And what I've learned is that that voice still exists in my head too. But what I've realized, as the less I listen to it, the less it starts showing up, right? And over time, before we kind of have these tools and techniques, most people is they get fully involved with that voice. They listen to it, they negotiate with it, they try and fight it, they push back, right? And when you get wrapped up in it, it gets louder and louder and louder and louder and louder. And one of the things I teach, and it sounds like, you walk a similar path, is that if you actually just stop listening to it and ignore it, and you can actually use tools like such as a mantra, like a phrase to repeat in your head to override that negative voice. What I found in my life is that terrorist voice will actually stop coming as much.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that it's similar.
Oh yeah. And I mean, as you go there more frequently, one thing that I believe is that the voice isn't so scary. I have a quote that I often go off of that I think goes along great with yours is, the trees that touch heaven also have the roots that touch hell. And if you're unwilling to experience hell, then you're also unwilling to experience heaven to the full extent. And if I sit there and you fight that pain that comes through that voice, like if you sit there and you get in this tug of war, right, you're going to lose. Like trying to think your way out of overthinking is like trying to sniff your way out of a cocaine addiction. Yeah. It doesn't work.
You can't, like Buddhist quote is, you can't outthink a disturbed mind.
Exactly. And so what you do in that moment is it's not like you sit there and fight and negotiate and say, go away, I don't like you, I'm going to ignore you, right? You don't say that. You just drop the rope and you say, hey, look, like I'm not going to fight with you. I just don't negotiate with you. Like, look, I hear you. You may have my best interest, but like, that's just not going along with my goals right now. I'm sorry. It just doesn't make sense. And then you can continue forward and it's found its place. It feels heard and you move on. And then you can continue to get better at that and to just realize it doesn't have a place in you because you're going to do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. And one thing I've learned too, and this is so powerful, right? You talked about like letting go of the rope on the tug of war. When you let go of the rope, right, everything kind of just falls away. There's no tension. There's no inner battle, right? And then what'll happen is as you learn that skill, you'll practice it more and more. That voice, the terrorist voice, might show up again, or in other situations, it might be an unpleasant emotion, fear or stress or overwhelm shows up. And if you just don't touch it, just relax and don't touch it, it moves right through you.
It does.
And then you're like back to center,
Mm-hmm.
right? Versus trying to fight and angle and manipulate and push and drown out. Now you're just at war with yourself, right? But if you can just learn the technique of just relaxing, I call it unclenching, just unclench.
Yeah.
Relax your hands. You might have a brief moment of discomfort where you're kind of overwhelmed, but if you just continue to relax, it will move through you. And then you return to kind of your natural state where you can focus on, in your situation, 100 miles.
Yeah. Well, you want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
So take a guess, at what point do you feel like most people quit a 100-mile race? When do most people DNF?
When do they give up?
Yeah, just take your best guess. At what mile?
Actually do quit.
Yeah. Like at what mile do you think is the most common mile to quit?
8.
Mile 8. Okay, so you think pretty early.
Pretty early.
Okay. So most people make it to 40.
40.
Okay. And here's why. 40 is never not far. Doesn't matter how much you run, like 40 is going to hurt.
40 is hard.
But the thing is that happens at 40 is most people, that pain starts to show up and people start to negotiate with it. And they think, if I hurt this bad now, this is how bad I'm going to feel at mile. Like I don't got another 60 in me. And so they think that the way I feel now is how I'm going to feel forever. But those who actually finish the ultramarathons and get to the end, one thing that they realize that most people don't is this too shall pass. What I feel right now isn't necessarily what I'm going to feel forever. And how I feel at 40 doesn't mean that's how I'm going to feel at 60 or 80 or 90. That moment comes and it goes. And our job as an ultramarathon runner is to create a relationship with it. You know, one thing that I often think about as I go towards these extreme challenges, and this is maybe more of an extreme perspective on it, but part of the reason I love these races is because if you stay in the darkness long enough, the darkness becomes the light. And if you can find that part where you make peace with it and it's not so scary and you stop fighting it and you just allow it to take place, all of a sudden you realize that it wasn't so scary and it didn't need to take so much of your time, effort, and energy fighting it. Just allow it to come, because it's going to come and it's going to go and you're going to be just fine. You can continue forward. And as you start to build that, that's where a lot of your trust, confidence, and self-respect comes from.
You know, it's really powerful you say this, because, you know, I've been really studying the last year. I'm in 2 men's groups. I'm in one like an entrepreneur group that's all across the country. I'm in another one that's more localized here in Utah. And in both of the groups, I for sure have the lowest net worth. Like in one of the groups I'm in, there's a dude, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm tuning into like, what skill sets do these guys all have in common? And one thing is evidently clear now. It's that they're not the smartest. They're not the most talented. They're not the most creative. But the one trait is that they all have a really massive capacity to feel discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can feel insecure. I can take risk. I can feel frustrated. I can feel anxiety. And I don't get knocked off my center. And so it's the same here in this situation. When you're running a race, it's like the pain is coming, the immense pain of wanting to quit, and I don't submit to it. And it's like very clear now as I'm like getting older in my life. I'm like, oh, the most important skill any human being can learn is emotional regulation, in the sense of when my emotions kick in of pain and frustration and insecurity and self-doubt, or the physical pain, is can I stay steady in the face of pain and not fighting it? And that's a really key point what you're saying here. It's not fighting it. It's not overcoming it. It's not, I'm going to beat it. I'm going to conquer it.
Right.
You surrender to it. And you're like, oh, I'm really uncomfortable right now. That's okay. I can handle it. Right. So this is, maybe I'm letting the cat out of the bag a little too early here, but my next book comes out in this in Q3, Q4. And the title of it is I Can Handle This.
Yeah.
Right. This pain is here. I can handle it. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to beat it. I'm not going to conquer it. It can be here. And what you said, which is so powerful, when you allow it to be there, when you don't fight it, what happens?
It becomes the light. It becomes what guides you.
Yeah. It transmutes.
It transmutes.
And it's like, oh, I can handle it. Now it actually fuels you. And so what you're saying is so deep. It's so powerful. So I'm curious from your perspective, because I've never done ultra marathon, right? The furthest I've ever ran, like in consecutive, is like 5 miles. I'm just not, my body just is not built for long distance runs, right? And there's a lot of other great things great in my life, and long distance running isn't one of them. But I'm curious for you, like when, because you hear about runner's high.
Yeah.
Right. On a 100-mile race, when does that hit?
For me, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever experienced runner's high, to be honest. Like, I've never had that moment where I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah.
For me, what always happens on every run, and it usually happens when I'm the most tired, is there's this moment of truth on every race where it's just you and the mountain, and you're so tired that it doesn't matter what your friend, like, who's there, what resources, how much you've trained. There's no energy gel that's going to get you up that hill. There's no caffeine or pain that pill that's going to take it away. And there's just you and a trail. And to me, I crave that moment, because what it is this moment where I truly see who I am and what I'm made of. And if I can, it's either I can or I can't. And my body will always take another step, but it's whether my mind or not will be able to follow through. And where I realize that I can take another step, I can get up that mountain, I can finish that race. There's a lot of beauty in that moment, because you truly gain a sense of self-confidence, because nobody else can give that to you. You can't pay for it. You can't be gifted it. It's only earned through all the time that you've put into creating yourself and personal development and who you are in that moment. And that's where you truly see.
And you have to run 90 miles before to get to that point, right? It's like that last piece, and you can't hack your way there. That's why I always have so much great respect for people who are in such good shape. Because even if I had $100 million and I want to get in great shape, I couldn't be like, hey, Brock, I'll give you $10 million if you get in shape for me. Like, there's nothing you can do. Like, you have to go through that process. And in my experience, it's like in those dark moments where you're like at your last moment, right? That's where all the growth comes from. And you can't biohack your way there. You can't hack your way into it. And so that the true prize is in that moment, and conquering all the aspects. So going to like your physical ailments, your mental talk, the terrorist in your voice, your emotions. So like, I can't even imagine the emotional roller coaster that happens in a 100-mile race.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I heard this quote that I really love, and it says, it's not about the destination. It's not about the journey. It's about the company. And on the other side of that moment of truth, there's a lot of freedom that comes. Your cup is actually very full. You feel very good about yourself. You feel very connected to the world. It's almost as if you can feel the earth. You can feel the trees. You can feel everything around you. And you're just experiencing all that this world has to offer. And typically on the other side of that, all you feel is just gratitude for your loved ones, for the people that have surrounded you, those supporting you. You just feel this immense amount of love and gratitude for the world and everything that's there. And that's the moment where you really realize what matters. And so then when you come back, it just makes it so much easier to be intentional. I recently, this last Saturday, I did this last man standing on a treadmill.
Yeah, I saw you posting about that. Tell us about that.
This race was really tough for me in a lot of ways. I'd never done anything like it, and I'm only doing like 35-mile weeks. I'm not necessarily, I'm in ultramarathon prep, but I'm lifting a lot more than I am running right now, just for my training. And
so tell us about what's the competition? What were the metrics?
So it's 5 miles every hour on the hour till you're the last one standing. So it's basically you're running, yeah. So you got to make it. You're running at about a 10-minute pace, so that because you can have a break. However fast you finish the 5 miles is however long your break is, and you can pick that and strategize however you think you can get there. So you show up, you get on this treadmill, and like to run 5 miles every hour on the hour, you're running a pretty solid pace for an ultra marathon. Like you're going to do 100 miles in 20 hours if you go to 100. Okay. So I start this race off and I was doing fairly good in the beginning. But I get to the end and I'm hitting about mile 70. And I just remember,
70.
Yeah, I look over at my wife and I was like, hon, I don't think I can go any further. Like I need to be done. And, she looks at me and she says, like, Brock, just let the time decide for you. You don't get to decide when you quit. Let the time decide for you. And then my partner looks at me and he says, there's no such thing as a perfect result. There's only such thing as a perfect effort here. And I said, okay, I'll go. So I run another round and another round and another round. I made it about 15 more miles. And during that time, a lot of the guys from my group had showed up. They wanted to come support. And I remember them just reading text after text of the changes that we've made in their life, of things that have happened. And I remember at 84.59, I collapsed on the treadmill. I couldn't go anymore. I fell over. And in that moment, of so much pain, of so much hurt, all you could feel is like, look at the people that are here.
Wow.
And it's a weird feeling, right? When you're on that moment, because you just have nothing. You have nothing. Your money doesn't matter. Food doesn't matter. You can literally feel the parts, like I love neuroscience, and you can feel the parts of your brain turning off, like rational thinking. You can feel the fight or flight turn off. Like there's no emotion. If a bear were to attack me, like I could do nothing. Like I wouldn't even be afraid.
This is it. Take me.
You wouldn't even be afraid. And like learning memory gone. And all you have is just the part of your body that moves, that is automatic, that is subconscious. And that's it. That's the only part that exists in there. And you just are like, I love you guys. I'm so grateful. And that's all you have. And it's just, it's a weird feeling that is hard to describe for someone that's never been there, but it's just amazing. You crave it.
Yeah. And that's what keeps you going.
Mm-hmm.
So we got off track, but I really want to, because I actually don't know the answer to this. Like what ended up happening after you did this 100-mile race when that coach is like, hey, go do something meaningful? Like walk us through the race.
I start the race. I do the first loop, no problem. I get through the second loop, start hurting, doing great.
How long is the loop?
So 25 miles. It was 4 marathons. It ended up being about 104 miles. So at mile 50, I get a pacer to come out. So I have my brother Cole. He comes and pace me. You should see this picture. There's just a picture of me running into this deep, dark storm. And it just rains the whole time. And it was horrible. I'm cold, I'm tired, and your body doesn't regulate temperature that well, that deep into a race when you're not tired. And so you're just like shaking. And we got lost in the storm, and we couldn't find our way for a minute, and I was just dying. But luckily, we were able to find it. We got through the last loop. I was barely moving. I go out with my brother Jens, and we did the last loop. We completed the race in 24 hours.
24 hours nonstop.
Yeah. So I finished that race, and that was a moment where you're like, okay, I can do this.
What did that feel like?
It was more just capability. It didn't feel like I was feeling any sort of insecurity in myself or gap. It was more just like, okay, I am that person that I said, what if? Like, what if I can be that guy? Like, I am that guy.
This really reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Alex Hormozi, and I'm sure we've heard it a lot too, but it's like, you don't build self-confidence by shouting affirmations in the mirror. You build self-confidence by doing the things you said you were going to do. And the only way you can build self-confidence is by doing what you said you were going to do.
You stack so much evidence that it would be unreasonable for you to not be who you're supposed to be,
right?
For not to be who you said, right? And that was that moment where it was like, okay, I've stacked so much evidence. Because one thing that I kind of alluded to in the beginning, but it's like confidence is comfortable, courage is not. And confidence is only earned through stacking evidence. Courage takes that initial step to walk into the unknown and say, I don't know what's going to happen. I've never ran anywhere near this distance, but I'm going to give myself a shot. And that's where you start to really build that sense of self.
Totally. And I think, one of my favorite definitions of confidence isn't someone who has all the answers and has complete control of their life and knows what's going on. But like true confidence at its core is someone who has the ability to navigate their life with really high levels of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Right. I have no clue how this is going to unfold. No idea.
Yeah.
But I trust in my ability to figure it out. Right. And so now you're starting to stack some wins, right? Right. So how did that affect your business and change your business moving forward?
Changed everything. Like, I was able to make the financial risk that we needed to. I was able to go out there, put myself out there in a way. Like, I remember telling my wife right after that, I was like, I feel like my heart is on a stick and that I want to crawl out of my skin all the time, but I wouldn't have it be any different. And I remember we just took the risk. We did what we needed to do. And like, we were able to build an engine that was able to get rolling. We were able to build a community, and I was getting results left and right. Like, people were losing the weight. They were getting jacked. They were seeing the mindset change. They were starting to build the belief systems. And I started to really build a system that creates, because what I do, like I said, is like, I don't feel like I'm a coach, but coaching is a part of the program. I'm not a personal trainer, but personal training is a part of the program. What I do is an inside out transformation. Is I help build people from the inside out, is where your belief systems, identities begin to align, and then I create an environment that is conducive to learning, to where growth is very literally inevitable. Because when I was in psychology, I loved how to influence behavior, but I didn't think that was the end all, and I honestly didn't feel like they had all the answers. But when I started to learn about neuroscience, I started to really understand that how much growth is systematic. It's not as much a hope, it's not luck, and it's not just naturally gifted to some people.
It's a predictable process.
It's a predictable process. And if you implement the right systems, then growth becomes inevitable. It becomes your normal, all you know. And if you can have that, then that's what creates it. And that's honestly one of the reasons I go out and do these races, is because it's like, look at me. Like, I was a fourth string corner in high school who hurt himself and couldn't play. I wasn't that great at anything that I did. And now all of a sudden I'm able to go out and do these things because of the fact that I've implemented these systems that have changed how I'm wired, how I feel about myself, how I think. And this system is something that can implement. Like, Brock isn't NeuroMastery. NeuroMastery is not Brock. Like, I'm a product of the system that I've used, and that here it is, it's plug and play.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you talk about changing from the inside out, and obviously having worked with a lot of people one-on-one and in your program. Are there similar or consistent self-limiting beliefs you see that most people carry?
I mean, self-worth is the biggest one.
Yeah, tell me more.
I mean, you often, this is, you get a guy who comes into your office and they're like, nah, I just don't think I can do it. I don't know if that's for me, right? You listen to someone's talk and they're just like, oh, well, I'm just not that smart. I'm just not that good. I just procrastinate, right? But they're not willing. And then what they do is they try to either outwork their self-doubt. Like, if you're me, I just thought if I worked harder and did more, then I would be okay. But what I was doing is really trying to compensate my own disbelief with hard work. And so you see those guys, or you see the ones who say, well, what's the use? I'm not even going to try. Or you see the ones that are actually really good at things and they just stop trying. Because they're like, well, I don't even see the point in doing this. I can go out, knock 5 doors and sell all the people, and then I have enough money, meet my needs, we're good. But they don't like themselves. They don't like who they are. They don't like how they act in the world, but that's what they do. And those are probably the biggest ones that I've seen.
Yeah, so how do you make that shift, right? So, obviously I've run into the same things in my business too, but my whole thing at Alchemy is you don't have a sales problem, you have a personal problem blocking your sales, right? And I think it's kind of true all across the board, right? So someone comes into your program, they know they can break through, they kind of figure out they want to grow, expand, but they are lacking, self-belief, self-worth. You talk about these systematic approaches. What is an approach or a system you would take someone through to start changing that lack of self-belief?
So there's a few different ways, but one of the biggest ones is, if you want to help a hurt dog, you put him in a healthy pack. And I set a standard that's so high within my group that, like, if you come in and you bring that self-doubt with you, you're not going to be judged. You're not going to be criticized for it, but you will stick out like a sore thumb. It's not normal. And so we immediately change what's your standard for yourself. What is actually good? Is your 5 cells enough? Maybe. But how good could you actually be? And the standard is growth. Growth is the inevitable. Like, all the guys in our group, they relate on growth. And you start to implement them into an environment that forces them to learn. It forces them to grow, because if not, you won't fit in.
Yeah. What are some simple, I have a couple in my mind too, but I'm curious from your perspective, what are some simple standards that someone can implement to their life today to actually force that momentum, force that growth, whether that be physical attributes, mental learning growth? Like, what are some standards someone can implement into their daily life today to start to create that momentum?
So funny you ask that. This might be a little bit abstract from what you're asking, okay? Because I'm not going to tell you who you are. Like when you come to my group, I'm not going to tell you who Doug is because I believe that where you bring the most value, Doug, is you being Doug. You're not supposed to be Brock. I don't want you, like, you don't have to come into my group and say, okay, Brock's the standard here. No, because that ruins what we've built. Like the best version of Doug is you being Doug and owning that. Okay. So here's how I define the standards. People come in, there's a poor standard. Okay. A poor standard is where there's no clear vision. You don't really know what you're doing and you're just kind of blowing by the wayside. Right? These are the type of people you'll recognize them very quickly by saying like, okay, well, I'm here, aren't I? Like, oh, I'm doing what you asked. Those are those guys, okay? Then there's a good standard. And a good standard are the ones who show up and check the boxes. Okay, I did everything you asked me to. What more do you want? Right? They show up, they check the boxes, they go home. And here's one thing that I want you to recognize. Poor standards gets no result. No clear vision, no clear what you want, you get nothing. Good standards gets poor results. Okay? Then you have an excellent standard. These are the guys that show up, they go above and beyond, they do everything you asked them to, and they're doing everything. But the problem with these ones is they're always the ones saying, well, like, look, I'm doing everything. What more could I possibly be doing? Because they're so spread thin and they're just working, hoping that gets them results. And it does. It helps, right? Like an excellent standard is going to get good results. Good standards are going to get poor results. Poor standards gets no result. Okay, but you're going to recognize an excellent standard by these guys often saying like, okay, like what more could I do? That's how you'll know them. Okay, and the group that we're trying to create is an outstanding standard is what we call it. Okay, an outstanding standard is where you're a category of one. You created your own category and you're not sitting there trying to comparison. You're not in a one-to-one where you're saying, okay, well, I'm better than them or I'm worse than them. Like if you notice about excellent, good, and poors, they're always in a one-to-one comparison. You're doing better than everybody else. You're doing the same as everybody else, or you're just kind of there. But an excellent outstanding standard is you're in a 1-0. You're in your own category, which is where you get to price yourself however you want to. You get to say, this is who I am, and you impose yourself into your environment rather than the other way around, your environment imposing itself into you. And that outstanding standard, the way you're going to recognize these ones is they're often going to say like, well, what more could I learn? How could I develop this skill set? Because they understand that it's an infinite game that they're playing and they're just trying to become the highest and best version of themselves. And when that's the standard in our group, it becomes very easy because I don't have to be the most elite one in NeuroMastery. I can use Alex because he's really good at business. And I want Alex to be the best version of Alex and bring his value and share that with the group because I think there's a lot you could learn from him. And Denver and Chaz and, Cray, all the guys. Like there's so much you can learn because each person has what they can offer. And the more that you embody that, the more value you bring.
Yeah, I mean, that's so good. And I think the defining characteristic trait of that is people in the outstanding standard have understood and realized that there is no finish line.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're not trying to get anywhere, right? And I'm a big believer that like the way to win the game is to realize that there is no end game. Like there is no winner, right? The point of the game is to keep playing the game. And in my experience, the moment I had, when I was in my Vivint days, I was always like trying to like solve the problem. And if I just get to the finish line, then I'll be good. And then realizing that there is no finish line provided this like immense relief of like having to be anxiously stressed out all the time. And I'm like, oh, there's no finish line on this thing. I can actually move at a more authentic pace and be more intuitive and learn new skill sets and be patient with myself and do things the right way and curious of what else I can learn and uncover new parts of myself. And it really was, the analogy I've been thinking about recently is when you live an outstanding standard, it's very similar to thinking about yourself as a house. And in this house, right, there are rooms that you have yet to explore. And so in an outstanding standard, it's like, oh, what other rooms are in this house that I can go in and find a key and unlock this room and discover a whole new room within me, a new talent, a new skill, a new opportunity, right? Parts of myself that I haven't ever maybe explored before. And it moves at a very slow and kind of methodical but intentional pace versus this angsty rush, hurry, got to figure it out. Like I've checked all the boxes I'm doing. You're telling me, why haven't I received my reward yet? Versus like, hey, this is a never ending game. And I'm going to grow and I can expand and I can learn a whole new skill. And I'm focused on providing value and being present and being a good husband, father, community member, member of my religion or whatever you're into. And that's where like the true, in my experience, the true fulfillment comes from.
Yeah. Well, that's the power in it, right? Is the alignment that comes.
Alignment is such a good word.
Because I think a lot of people feel the money, right? Once I get the money, then I can do all these things. And the money is going to feel some sort of insecurity inside themselves. If I can get the girl, if I can get married, if I can get to this point, then that's going to fill this void in my life and I'll have everything I could ever ask for. And then you get there and you realize it's like, oh, that's still there. And you're not getting rid of the problems. And the problems aren't necessarily a bad thing. A lot of it is creating that relationship with pain to where it's your friend. Like John Mayer said it best, pain is your friend misunderstood. And once you can understand it, then all of a sudden it can be this light that can help you, that can guide you, that can be a part of you. And it can exist without having to be such a hard thing. And then you find your power. Because you stop having to feel the shame of being somebody, like trying to be somebody else. You have to stop trying to keep up or hold another standard. And you just get to then impose yourself into your environment and say, this is who I am. Do you want to come along? I'm not going to, you don't have to convince. I don't have to judge. I don't have to tell you you're wrong. Like, you just start to say, like, this is me. And then you begin to attract everything this world has to offer. And all that comes with it. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. And I think another way to put it so good is most people are in a state of, I'm not okay. I'm just not okay. And it might not be like this really intense, I'm really anxious or really depressed, but just, I'm just slightly little insecure, slightly little anxious, slightly fearful. What can I go get in the outside world that will make me feel okay? I'm not okay. So let's go make $1 million. I'm not okay. So maybe you use the word Band-Aid really early on in the conversation, but like maybe if I get married, that'll put a Band-Aid over me not being okay. Right. Mm-hmm. And the shift is versus learn to be okay. I'm totally okay where I'm at right now. Right. I love all parts of myself. I love who I am. I'm okay. Now that I'm okay, how is life asking me to express myself in the world? Right. And this is a totally different path versus most people are, what can I go out and get? What can I go get outside to make me feel better inside? Right. And in my whole spiritual journey, like very clearly, what's the biggest lesson is that you can't fix an internal problem with something external. You can get temporary relief, right? Very temporary relief, a moment of, get a breath of fresh air for a brief moment. But at the end of the day, if you have an internal problem, the only way to fix it is by going inside. And it sounds like that's what your program is really focused on.
Yeah, that's kind of where I've focused, is that I want to give people the opportunity to experience things the money can't buy. Like, they can't be given, they can't be bought, they can't. It's just a matter of showing up, stacking that evidence, and having a system in place and a support system where you have every opportunity for growth. And then it's just a matter of showing up, right? Where you have workout programs. If it's hard to know what to do, it doesn't matter really what workout program you do. I could give you the best workout program in the world. If you can't show up for it, it doesn't matter, right? And that's the part where it's like the inside out. If you can build the belief systems that reinforce your workouts, if you can build the workouts that build the body then builds the confidence, and then you have the spiritual that starts to come into play because you're able to connect there. You're not wasting so much resources on anxiety and being scared and fearful. It's just like, this is what I do now. Then you start to have the mental challenges where you're like, okay, I'm going to go build some mental toughness. I'm going to go take on challenges. I'm going to become the person that I'm proud of, where I look myself in the mirror naked and say, wow, like, I'm so proud of everything you've built. And that's the moment where you're like, okay, anything's possible.
Yeah. So tell me more about your program. Who is it designed for? And like, what's like your ideal, like someone who should definitely be a part of this group?
Yeah. So we have a few levels. We love people who are, trying to be productive, like, entrepreneurs are very common. Dads are very common. People who just feel like they've been caught in the monotony of life and that, this is what it is. Like, if you're telling yourself that is this all there is to life? Is this all I have? Like, there's not anything more here. I promise you there is. And that's often who we're talking to. And, It's anywhere from 25 to 45-year-olds, sometimes a little bit older. But it's a lot of times just those people who have chosen a life that they're not necessarily proud of. They don't like who they see in the mirror. They don't like their daily activities and where they're spending their time. And, we're here to offer them an alternative. Like the way I see myself is like, in the movie The Matrix, he's got the red pill and the blue pill, right? Like I'm Neo. I just offer the pill. And then if you want to take it, like there's an alternative life that's available to you where you can experience everything this world has to offer. And you can experience them fully, from the anxiety to the fear to the happiness, excitement, and everything in between.
Incredible. And how can someone find out more about NeuroMastery?
Yeah, just Instagram, Brock Painter Official is where we're typically, or YouTube if you want to kind of come along on some of the races that we've done. So Brock Painter Official on Insta or on YouTube.
Cool, Brock. I love everything you're doing, man. It totally aligns with my philosophies. I appreciate you as a friend, and the whole message of becoming the right person inside so you can live an exceptional life outside really resonates. So I appreciate you coming on, man.
I appreciate you, Doug. Thank you,
brother. Big love.